right, welcome to Something to Talk About. My name is Taco. I had to fix my hair all of a sudden. All right, thank you, camera. And welcome to Something to Talk About. It's Saturday morning, covering one of my A Song of Ice and Fire characters. And if you don't know who I am or why I'm ranting at you, and you haven't already clicked off, read this. This explains the madness that is going on here. Spoilers for the A Song of Ice and Fire books and for the show, because we are talking about Barbrey Dustin, Barbrey Ryswell, Lady of Barrowton. I'm going to keep saying Barrowtown. And, such a big character. So this is not going to be a short episode. You already know how long this episode is. I don't. I bet it's pretty long. Before I get going, I'm going to say thank you, because it's a request from a long-time viewer, Brody Day. He was around when I had, no subscribers who I wasn't friends with, right? He's like the first person where I was like, I don't know that name. My friend messing with me? Why is this person commenting? Why are you watching my stuff? I don't know you. Yeah. So, I don't have a lot of subscribers now. I really didn't back then. So yeah, I'm almost nervous. It's such an important character, Barbrey Dustin. I used to think Barbrey Dustin was too big of a character, and now that I've covered characters as prominent as Barbrey, it's time. All right. So no more rambling and rumbling and rumpusing. Let's just get into Barbrey Dustin. You guys ready? Let's go. All right. Barbrey Dustin, born a Ryswell, is the Lady of Barrowton and a widow of Willam Dustin, Lord of Barrowton. She was, like I said, born into House Ryswell as the younger daughter of Rodrik Ryswell, Lord of the Rills, and is the sister of Roger, Rickard, and Roose Ryswell. And they had a sister named Bethany, who's the late second wife of Roose Bolton, Lord of the Dreadfort. So they're super close to Roose Bolton. They're very close to the Boltons, right? And also, I find it really weird that Rodrik decided to name his sons all R's, but dropped the naming convention for his daughters and went with all B's. I don't know, man. That's weird. Shouldn't she be Robbery Dustin? No, that doesn't work. All right, Barbrey works. I always want to say Barbara Dustin, but it's Barbrey Dustin. Yeah, it's a great name. All right. Barbrey is tall, unbent, not sure what that means, and handsome. She has wrinkles around her mouth and dark eyes. Her hair is equal parts brown and gray. Lady Dustin wears her hair tied behind her head in a widow's knot. She is a widow. It's pretty much her most important facet of her character. She's really a widow. Well intelligent, Barbrey has grown into a bitter woman over the years. Her smile can appear ugly and feral. Why are you making that feral face? I'm smiling. Is that a feral face? I really like this movie. I'm cracking myself up. All right. Lady Dustin dresses in all black without gold or jewelry. One of her gowns has a high, stiff collar and sleeves lined with var. All right. And she has a sable cloak. Barbrey's personal banner flying over the keep of Barrow Hall quarters the spiked crown and crossed axes of Barrowtown with the golden horse head of her father, Lord Rodrik Ryswell, right? So it's like a mix, right? You guys got that? You got that? All right, cool. Let's get into House Dustin. All right, so I'm going with Dustin and not Ryswell for her house, but House Dustin of Barrowtown is a noble house from the north, one of the major families sworn to House Stark. Their castle is Barrow Hall in the Barrowton, a prominent town in the north. The Dustins claim descent from the first kings of the First Men and the Barrow kings of the Barrowlands, who rule after him. When the last Barrow king submitted to House Stark of Winterfell at the end of the 1,000 Years' War, it's a long war, the King of Winter took his daughter for a wife. House Dustin claims of shared blood and descent of the Barrow kings regarded as truth. Barrowton has prospered under the Dustins, who have loyalty, ruled by the Barrowlands for the Starks. Ruled the Barrowlands by the Starks. For the Starks, there you go. Who have loyally ruled the Barrowlands for the Starks. That was the sentence all along. Aegon I held court at Barrowtown once during his reign. Denny Snow, the bastard of Barrowtown, joined Prince Aegon the Uncrowned against his uncle Maegor. Heck yeah, I really like Denny Snow. He's great. Though Denny's and the prince perished in the battle beneath the God's Eye. Yeah, it didn't work out. Old King Jerry and Queen Alysanne visited Barrowtown on their royal progress north in 58 AC. House Dustin supported Princess Rhaenys Targaryen in the Great Council of 101. In 133 AC, the winter fever descended on Barrowton the following year as winter proved cruel. Lord Dustin closed his gates to hundreds of starving small folk outside the town's walls. Man, we got a lot for House Dustin. That was a lot. And she was born a Ryswell. But I decided to go with Dustin. I don't know of any other Dustin I'm going to cover. So I figured this is the time. This is the time to cover Dustin. So, yeah. So I did. Barbrey and Brandon. Brandon Stark, we're going to talk about. The eldest son of Rickard Stark and the older brother of Ned Stark, often rode the Rills while being fostered at Barrowtown with old Lord Dustin. So he was staying with the Dustins, but he would ride the Ryswells area, the Rills. Infatuated with Brandon, young Barbrey had an affair with him. Don't worry, we're going to get into way more details later on. Who took her maidenhead. Lord Rodrik hoped to wed his daughter to a Stark, but Lord Rickard betrothed his heir to Catelyn Tully of Riverrun. Barbrey claimed Brandon did not want to wed Catelyn, and that the betrothal was the idea of Wallace. We'll get into all this. Rickard's maester at Winterfell. Rodrik then hoped to wed Barbrey to Brandon's younger brother, Eddard Stark, but that was not to be. Barbrey instead wed Willam Dustin, the young Lord of Barrowton, and the abduction of Lyanna Stark by Prince Rhaegar Targaryen, whatever happened there, led to executions of Brandon and Lord Rickard Stark by the Mad King in King's Landing. Eddard returned to the north to call his banners for Robert's Rebellion. Not yet half a year into the marriage, Willam rode off in war against Barbrey's objections. Yeah, she didn't want him to go to the Robert's Rebellion. Barbrey gifted him a fine red steed, the pride of her father's herd. And Willam swore he would return mounted on the horse. Willam followed through the war and accompanied him south after the siege of followed Ned. That's what I meant to say. Followed Ned through the war and accompanied him south after the siege of Storm's End. Lord Dustin was slain in combat at the Tower of Joy by Ned, and then Ned built, or not by Ned, sorry, with Ned, and Ned built cairns for the fallen. So everybody who died at the Tower of Joy. I'm starting to stumble over my words, so let me say it again. Willam, her husband, right after they got married, rode south for Robert's Rebellion, and then he continues to ride south after Robert's Rebellion. They go do the Tower of Joy, and everybody with Ned died except for Ned and Howland Reed, right? So she buried his bones there, or Ned buried Willam Dustin's bones there. Whew, you got that? All right, man, I got so much left. I'm already stumbling and mumbling. All right, where was I? So after the war ended, Lord Stark returned to Willam's steed to Barbrey. She bears a grudge against Eddard, who brought the bones of her sister back, but not the bones of her husband, of his sister. Wow, I can't get one word. I gotta mess up at least one word a sentence. All right. Let's do better. I'm gonna do better for you guys. I owe it to Barbrey Dustin. All right. She hates Ramsay. Well, who doesn't? And according to widow's law, thank you, Alicent Targaryen, Barbrey remained at Barrowton after her husband's passing, ruling the town in her own name. She was fond of her sister Bethany's son, Domeric Bolton, right, who served at Barrowtown for 4 years as her page. Since Domeric's death in 297 AC, Barbrey has nursed suspicions that Ramsay Snow's involvement. Yeah, she thinks that Ramsay Snow killed Domeric. Probably did. Either that or Roose. I'm not getting into it, but those are my suspicions. During the War of the Five Kings, the Lady Barbrey sent a minimal number of soldiers to from Barrowtown to join the Army of the North, as little as she could without Robb getting mad. Robb Stark was proclaimed king of the North, but was later red weddinged at the Red Wedding. Barbrey is one of the co-signers of the letters that Ramsay Bolton sends announcing that Mount Caelan has been retaken from the Ironborn. She hosts the Boltons at Barrowton, where the wedding of Ramsay to, quote, Arya Stark, right? This is fake Arya, is to occur. Houses Stout and Dustin host the Boltons while they wait for the Bannermen to arrive, while Ramsay searches the Barrowlands for the missing Frey envoys. She cannot abide the presence of Ramsay and his bastard boys and forbids them from Barrow Hall. Instead, Ramsay reluctantly is hosted by Harwood Stark. A very angry Ramsay threatens to burn the wooden town down. She gives gray colts to Ramsay's squires, Big and Little Walder. Yeah, that's a lot there, but she really hates Ramsay. That's what we're getting at. And he wasn't even allowed to stay there when he stayed at Barrowton. She's like, no, you got to go stay with one-armed Harwood Stout. Don't worry about it. The wedding at Winterfell, right? Oh, I thought they were going to get married at Barrowtown. Nope, didn't happen. When Roose Bolton, the new Ward in the North, learns that Stannis Baratheon has left the wall, he decides to move Ramsay's wedding from Barrowtown to Winterfell. Barbrey insists on taking custody of, quote, Arya until the wedding occurs. Theon Greyjoy, who travels in Lady Dustin's retinue to Winterfell, has been chosen ceremoniously to present, quote, Arya, right? This is Jane Poole, if I haven't already said that. This isn't actually Arya Stark. This is Jane Poole. In marriage to Ramsay. Since he was a long-term time ward of Eddard Stark and is widely believed to be Arya's, believed that Arya's true-born brothers are dead. Yeah, so most people think that she doesn't have any brothers left and she doesn't have any other family left. So even though this isn't even Arya, this is Jane Poole being like fake Arya, right? They needed a brother and sisters, but there aren't any around. So yeah, so it's his job. Theon it's his job to, like, you know, walk her down the aisle or however it is for old god weddings. Where was I? Meanwhile, Winterfell is suffering from both a hard white frost and a looming menace of the coming Stannis Baratheon's troops. Even so, Ramsay marries, quote, Arya in the castle's Godswood. So the wedding feast is in the Great Hall of Winterfell, crowded and packed with people, with Abel, the bard, he's the one important, playing music and food and drink provided by Wyman Manderly, including 3 giant meat pies. Wink, wink. Theon sits beside Barbrey at the wedding feast, and she says, "Do you not eat?" Oh, wait, that's not a good Barbrey Dustin. Do you not? No, I don't like that either. I kind of like just kind of a normal voice. Do you not eat? Barbrey said to Theon, who with his missing and broken teeth does not eat well. She gestures to Wyman with her wine glass. Although Barbrey is astute and has good political savvy, she fails to see through the behavior of Wyman Manderly, Lord of White Harbor, during the feast. So she's about to harshly criticize Wyman, and I don't know if this is an act or if she really doesn't realize that Wyman's playing a game here. But yeah, I'm going to do a lot of dialogue from here on out. So she says, "No taste for pork pie, my lord." The best pork pie we've ever tasted, our fat friend would have us believe. Have you ever seen a fat man so happy he's almost dancing, serving with his hands? Yeah, because he's giving out all these meat pies and he's serving them himself. They definitely don't have Frey in them. The wedding feast. She calls Wyman craven to the bone and says that Wyman will pee himself when Stannis comes. She is offended by Wyman's apparent submission to the phrase and Bolton's despite his son, Sir Wendell Manderly, dying at the Red Wedding. Theon says that if Wyman planned to betray Roose, then they should warn him. And she says, "You think Roose does not know? Silly boy. Watch him. Watch how he watches Manderly. No dish so much as touches Roose's lips until he sees Lord Manderly eat of it first. No cup of wine is sipped until he sees Manderly drink from the same cask." I think he would be pleased if the fat man attempted betrayal. It would amuse him. Roose has no feelings, you see. Those leeches that he loves so well sucked all the passions out of him years ago. He does not love, he does not hate, he does not grieve. This is a game to him, mildly diverting. Some men hunt, some hawk, some tumble dice. Roose plays with men. You and me, these Freys, Lord Manderly, his plump new wife, even his bastard. We are but his playthings. Woo! I love that monologue. I got a lot of Barbrey Dustin monologues, so that's what you're here for. Yeah, so she's like, Wyman's probably going to betray, and then Roose is like, or not Roose, Theon's like, well, should we warn Roose? And she's like, no, look at Roose. He knows. He's plays with all of us. Yeah, she's probably not wrong. Roose is kind of like that. So where were we? She then refills her wine glass. Truth be told, she continues, truth be told, Lord Bolton inspires to be more than a mere lordship. Why not King of the North? She asks, explaining that the Lannisters are weak and that the Starks are gone. The Freys will like having a queen, and Wyman and Stannis will be dead soon. She says, who is left to stop him, right? I don't want to, there's a lot of Barbrey in this chapter, and I didn't want to use all of her lines, but I'm using a lot of them, as you can tell. But yeah, she's like, who's going to stop? Like, the Tywins are weak, or the Lannisters are weak right now. The Freys will totally be okay with him claiming King of the North. Like, Stannis isn't going to be able to stop him. Wyman Manderly's not going to be. Who can? And then Theon's like, she hates maesters. That's the name of this one. Theon says that the Lady of Barrowton could challenge Roose, and that pleases her. So she's like, who could stop him? And he's like, well, you could. And she says, the widow of Barrowton, and yes, if I so choose, I could be an inconvenience, of course. Roose sees that too, so he takes care to keep me sweet. She then notices that the maesters, just sees a maester, and then she says, if I were queen, the first thing I would do is kill all those gray rats. She goes on to talk about her hatred towards maesters, that all lords have them, and they read and write letters, and nothing is stopping them from twisting words to their own ends. What good are they, I ask? To that, Theon tries to remind her and says that they heal. Like, what good are they? Well, they're like doctors, right? And then she says, they tend to us when we are sick and injured or distraught over an illness of a parent or child. Whenever we are weakest and most vulnerable, they are there. Sometimes they heal us, and we are duly grateful. When they fail, they console us in our grief. We are grateful for that as well. Our gratitude will give them a place beneath our roof and make them privy to all of our shames and secrets, a part of every council, and before too long, the ruler has become the ruled. That was how it was with Lord Rickard Stark. Maester Wireless was his gray rat's name. She goes on to say that he was a bastard of Hightower, right? And it was sent to Winterfell to fill Rickard's ears with poisonous words, talking him into marrying Brandon to Catelyn and then later Ned, right? She gets cut off when Roose starts to speak about Stannis marching on them. Theon suspects that Barbrey is aware that the bride is an imposter. Oh, so much there. So she starts by saying, like, yeah, I could probably oppose Roose. And then she then sees a maester and completely forgets all of it and goes, you know what I would do? I'd get rid of them. And then she goes on to say that it's very easy for a maester with all their power to manipulate their lord, right? And we think that they work for us, but really, if they start manipulating us, we work for them, right? That's what she's trying to say. And then she brings up Rickard Stark's maester, right? Saying that he manipulated the Starks, and that's why she never got to marry Brandon, essentially, is what she's getting at, right? We have a lot. I'm going to keep going. Snowmen. Later during a storm, the men are stuck in Winterfell being sieged by Stannis. Outside, there is a snowball fight between the boys from the Rills and the Barrowtown. I'll never get Barrowton right. Well, the squires built snowmen along the battlements. Later on, the squires have built a dozen snowy lures to command the snowmen, including ones resembling Lord Wyman Manderly, Lord Harwood Stout, Lady Barbrey Dustin, and Horsebane Umber. Horsebane Umber. So I did talk a lot about these snowmen during Umber Week a month or two ago, whenever I did that, where I talked about Hother Umber. I talked about the snowmen. I will bring it up a little bit later, but yeah, I'm not going to dwell on the snowmen as much as I did in that one because I don't need to do it in two different videos, right? Lady Dustin asks Theon if he can show her the way down to the crypts, as she has had her men looking and they cannot access them from the dungeons. Theon says that there isn't anything down there but dead Starks. And then she says, all my favorite Starks are dead as it happens. He shows her, but they need to go outside, right? You can't just get there through the dungeons. Barbrey wraps herself up in a sable cloak as they enter the crypts. Barbrey has her men follow and hold lanterns as they walk down the steps. As they walk down the steps, she says, the bride weeps, our little Arya. She goes on to ask Theon to convince, quote, your bastard, Ramsay, to treat Arya better. The Northmen love the Starks and hate and fear the Boltons. She knows Hornwood men only think of old Lady Hornwood when they hear Arya crying, right? The tears of Arya Stark will upset them and do Roose and Ramsay more harm than anything Stannis could do, right? So she's like, hey, dude, you should talk to Ramsay about like not torturing Arya, essentially, fake Arya. And yeah, like Theon's like, I can't do like I just stopped being tortured like last week. We're finally in a chapter called Not Reek. Taco is finally saying Theon and not Reek. That's why I say Theon in all these, because everything that's happened through at this point, Theon is no longer in Reek chapters, or else I would probably have been saying Reek. But yeah, he's already in like Prince of Winterfell and A Ghost in Winterfell, those chapters. Turncloak, those ones. Before he starts getting actual Theon chapters. All right, I already did this one. Let's keep going, guys. Whew. In the crypts, they follow these steps down into the crypts. She asks Theon if he knows the names of the old kings of winter. He does his best to explain them. She asks to see Ned Stark's tomb, and Theon leads her as the eyes of the stone kings and stone wolves follow them. That's not creepy. They find that some of the dead king's swords are missing. Theon asks Barbrey why she hates the Starks, and she says for the same reason Theon loves them. Theon claims that he raided Winterfell and he killed them. He doesn't love them, but she reminds him that he also marched south with Robb and tried to get his father to join him, right? You loved him before you marched on him, is what she's saying. She claims he gave she claims that she gave as little men as she could to Robb, but the men she did send gave her information and spied for her. She asks again if he then reluctantly explains that he always wanted to be a Stark, but never could. Dustin remarks that they are similar in that regard. Once they get to Rickard and Brandon's tombs, they notice that there are missing swords down there as well. They say that Brandon would hate that he doesn't have a sword, right? She's like, Brandon would hate not having a sword because Brandon, now we're back on a quote, Brandon loved his sword and he loved to hone it. I want it sharp enough to shave off a woman's blank. Yeah. Shave the hair off a woman's blank. God, you gotta love all these typos. Yeah, that's you know what I'm getting at, right? The pubic hair, if you will. He wants to a sword so sharp. He's like, I don't know any woman who would be okay with you swinging a sword down there. So maybe you don't need it that sharp, you crazy person. Keep that sword away from there. He used to say how he loved to use it. Sorry, we're still in the quote. A bloody sword is a beautiful thing, he told me once. She says with a lantern's fire in her eyes. She goes on explaining how Brandon Stark used to ride the Rills. Yeah, I already kind of said all this, but now we're going to hear it all from her point of view. I decided to keep it in twice because it is part of her backstory, but it also is kind of helps us understand Barbrey a little more. Don't worry, we're getting there. We're getting there. Ned's bones. Her Lord Father loved to play host to Brandon, and that her father had a great ambition, right? And it would have served her maidenhead to any Stark that happened by. But there was no need since Brandon took what he wanted. Here we go. Now we're going to talk about her losing her virginity. This is not awkward at all. She says, Brandon was never shy about taking what he wanted. I am old now, a dried up thing, too long a widow, but I still remember the look on his, the maiden blood on his man parts. That's my edit. The night he claimed me. I think Brandon liked this side of it as well. A bloody sword is a beautiful thing. Yes, it hurt, but it was a sweet pain. Oh, man. Sorry guys. Sorry we're getting all awkward today, but it's important stuff, right? But Rickard Stark arranged the betrothal to Catelyn Tully instead, a match that served his own ambitions. So then she says, nothing sweet about that pain. She says she claims Brandon didn't want to marry her, but Rickard had, quote, Southron ambitions. The ambitious Lord Ryswell wanted Barbrey to marry Eddard instead, but after Brandon's death, Catelyn got him as well. So left to marry Lord Willam Dustin, who she only had been married for half a year before Ned asked him to go south for Robert's rebellion. She blames Ned for Lord Dustin's death at the Tower of Joy. She felt slighted that Eddard merely buried her husband in Dorne, yet went to great lengths to transport his sister's body back to be buried at Winterfell. She claims that she intends to seize Ned Stark's bones and feed them to her dogs. Yeah, she holds that grudge for quite a while. When I said earlier that she's very widowed, it's because that's the most important part of her life. That she still dresses in all black, right? She still acts like a widow. She hasn't moved on, and that's fine. However she wants to grieve, I'm not judging, but she really does manifest this anger towards everyone involved in her marriage, her not getting married to Brandon, her getting married to William, and then Willam Dustin dying. That's consumes her. She is consumed by this vengeance of kind of getting her life, stolen. Like, she is a woman in this world. She's constantly told that the only thing that she is good for is going to be a mom, going to be a wife, and then she never gets to fulfill any of that because the guy she loved, who she would have married for love, is taken from her. And then the guy who she is then forced to marry, and she can finally be that thing she is told she has to be, is then taken from him as well, or from her as well. So that hatred and bitterness is like her entire life. I don't suggest you hold on to rage and resentment your entire life, but that's what she went with. That's the path that she chose, right? So she would feed Ned Stark's bones to her dogs. So she has a twisted smile that reminds Theon of Ramsay. Oof. On the way back up, she tells him to repeat nothing to the Boltons. Yeah, don't talk about what we talked about down here. Theon swears that he will not, in which she says that he has been trained well, and then she leaves him there. Don't worry, we're getting there, guys. I knew this would be a long one. Let's keep going, and I absolutely love this art, and that's why Weirwood King, that's why this became my thumbnail, because this art's fantastic. But anyways, murders in the snow. As tensions arise in the snowbound Winterfell, Barbrey and her brother Rodrik Ryswell calm the knights from House Manderly when Hostine Frey insults Lord Wyman. When Barbrey requests a more cheerful song, the Winter Maid during a meal, Abel sings, "The queen took off her sandal and the king took off his crown," which is a cheerful song, and "The Bear and the Maiden Fair," which is a very cheerful song. I love that song. Well, she appears to be loyal to House Bolton. Barbrey bears a grudge against House Frey due to the fact that several of her own men were killed at the Red Wedding. She points this out to Aenys Frey when several suspicious deaths occur at Winterfell. She says, "Night work is not night's work," Lady Dustin said, and Lord Wyman is not the only man who lost kin at your Red Wedding. Frey, do you imagine Horsebane loves you any better? If you did not hold the Great John, he would pull out your entrails and make you eat them. Jeez. As Lady Hornwood ate her own fingers. The Flints, Kerwins, Tallhearts, Slates, they all had men with the young wolf. Rodrik Ryswell says the Ryswells did as well, right? He's like, yeah, so did my men. Even at Dustin's of Barrowton. Lady Dustin parted her lips in a thin, feral smile. That's that feral smile we're talking about. The North remembers Frey. That's how she ends that, which I really like. Like, he's like, the Freys are thinking that their rivalry is like, oh, those dang Manderleys hate us. Oh, what are they doing with what happened to our cousins? Blah blah blah. And she's like, bro, we all hate you. Like, the Manderleys aren't the only ones who hate the Freys. You're in the North. Think about this. Think about it. So yeah. She is absent when Hostine Frey then enters the Great Hall, announcing that Little Walder, son of Merritt, has been killed, resulting in a fight between the Freys and the Manderleys, and Ruth sending them out to fight Stannis. So that's the end of her story. 35 minutes. All right, let's go. I got one more slide, guys. I got one more slide. Told you it was going to be a long one. It was hard to leave out, just like when I covered Miranda Royce. Like, I love these quotes. Randa's were not as chilling, but I mean, you can't really talk about Barbrey Dustin without all of these monologues she had that I really like. But yeah, the Northern Conspiracy. So this was a request, as I said, by Brody Day. And of course, she is suspected to be part of the, quote, Grand Northern Conspiracy, working with the Umbers and the Manderleys and the Stouts, like the Snowmen said, there is a theory that I talked about in my Hother Umber video about snowmen, that it is code for the outside forces to who is on their side. And I love that theory. Yeah, like that. I'm not going to get into it too much, but all the snowmen are built on the battlements, so you can actually see them from the outside. And then they built the ones who are the lords that are commanding them. And the lords that they built might be code to whoever's like, it's Crowfoot Umber out there. He's going to look up and he's going to be like, oh, that one has one arm. That's Howard Stark. That one's a really fat one. That's Wyman Manderly. Those guys are on our side. That's the theory, and I really love that. So if you want to hear more about that, actually where I found that theory, go watch my Hother Umber video. I found a fun one on Westeros.org by Sansa Taking Up Needle called A Closer Look at Lady Dustin. This is a very long post broken into a few parts, but I feel like the main thing that it is getting at is the North remembers, but the Starks forgot. Right. And that somewhere along the way, the real Northern traditions and the pact with the others. She resents the Starks for Northern ambitions and for forgetting the old ways. Right. Like I said, this post is super huge and I'm not presenting all of it to you right now, but it's a cool thought. Yeah. Like, the North remembers is something that she even says in this. That's what she says to the phrase, right? But the idea that the Starks might have lost their way. And not only do we remember, but we remember more than the Starks remember, right? And that's kind of what a lot of it's getting at. It was a really cool read. So if you want a easily digestible, older video about the Northern conspiracy, which I'm not going to get into right now any more than I already did. I'll drop a link for Alt-Shift-X's video from 8 years ago. You've probably seen it. If you've seen my channel, you're subscribed to that channel, right? But it is called The North Remembers, Is There a Grand Northern Conspiracy? And yeah, I'll put that link in the video. Thank you for watching. This ended up being a really long video. 40 minutes. Holy crap. But yeah, Barbrey Dustin, I mean, you can't really, you have to do it justice. I'm sorry I got so jumbled towards the beginning. I feel like I got my stride. This is not the first video I'm filming today, so I'm already a little fried. But yeah, thank you for watching. I'll put a link to that Alt-Shift-X video in the description, and you guys are amazing if you made it this far. And yeah, peace.